draft we've got to draft a request for services for owner's project manager services. That request needs to be submitted to the MSBA by May 15th. As part of that step, we have to formalize the OPM selection committee. So a subset group of this committee and potentially others to help us select the owner's project manager who will oversee the project management services for the city and the district on this. The advertisement to secure those services needs to be sent to the Central Register by May 29th. That would be able and available for prospective owner's project manager firms to pick up those specifications on June 4th. Then applications will be due back to the district on June 18th. And these two dates are kind of critical for the step that we're going to take tonight to form the OPM selection committee. Beginning on June 18th and between June 18th and probably July 6th or 7th, the people that are on the OPM selection committee will be responsible for receiving, reviewing, ranking, and ultimately making a recommendation for a selected firm to carry forward with to sign a contract. That information has to be sent to the MSBA by July 9th. And then after the July 9th date, the MSBA's panel will take all of that information and our recommendation, and hopefully on August 4th of 2025, they'll make a recommendation for us to enter into contractual negotiations with the selected firm and ultimately sign a contract. That firm would then become responsible for a whole host of responsibilities related to project management for the design process and the construction process. Next slide, please, Joanna. So this is where we're at with the current steps, and I alluded to it a little bit in the prior slide. But once all of these prerequisites have been completed to the satisfaction of the MSBA, they'll take us through the process of actually inking a contract and getting a firm under agreement to provide owner's project manager services. So right now, the critical path step that we're taking is the request for services. We've drafted the request for services in conjunction with the city side using the template document from the Fuller request for services. And that draft is in the packet or was sent to you on Friday. So you can see where we're at with that. Then that needs to be finalized as part of this next step that we take and then sent to the MSBA for review. That has to happen by May 15th. So between now and May 15th, it's critical that we get the selection committee formed, finalize that request for services, and then ultimately get that information all back to the MSBA. As we take the next steps tonight and another agenda item to formalize the OPM selection committee, there's no required number of members. There's no required makeup of the committee. The only requirement from the MSBA is that the committee has to include a full-time employee of the owner, Framingham, who's designated as the chief procurement administrator, and that individual has to be MCPPO certified through the state for purchasing. That being said, when we did meet with the MSBA, they did recommend that, various subsets of this committee would be probably appropriate members to be on the selection committee for the owner's project manager services, and including, some of the specialized backgrounds that are on this, as well as anybody else that might be interested. But I'd defer to Bob and Link and to the committee chair with regards to, what you think the quantity and makeup of this committee should actually be as we move forward. And your next two slides are an overview of the overall timeline for the MSBA project. I'm not going to go through and review all of these dates with you, but just suffice to say that we started in December of 23. We are currently in the April-May timeframe of 25, and this process will play out over the next 4 to 5 years and end with construction and hopefully opening a new school in 2029. So it is a lengthy process. It's a very prescribed process, but right now we're hitting all of the guidelines and deadlines and moving right along. So with that, I'll end the presentation and take any questions.
Sort of timeline. When would we likely be in a situation where we'd actually put a shovel in the ground?
So I think shovel in the ground is probably, and I don't want to speak, I don't have the information in front of me, but I think it's probably 2 years before the opening of the anticipated opening of the school. So you probably should put shovel in the ground in 27.
So about 2 years, 2.5 years from now, yeah.
Depending on how the process is.
Are there other questions about the presentation?
Question about, for like, what was the typical makeup of like the membership of one of these committees? Do you have any insight? Oh, sorry, excuse me. Segue.
No, it's actually a good question. Because I was gonna be combining them. I want to see if anybody has any questions about the presentation. Seeing none, so I think that is very appropriate. So why don't you just ask that question?
Sure, yeah, kind of looking at this, like, which we have a sense from previous projects in Massachusetts recently, like what was the typical makeup of committee, numbers, backgrounds that they found useful.
We did ask that question specifically of the MSBA, and they said there is no requirement. They said, but with regards to, what you may want to consider is, and I'll defer to Lincoln. I know that Lincoln, Bob, and several of the members of this committee were on the Fuller committee, but that, you'd have a select subset of this group who have some specialized backgrounds to be able to help with that.
So I'm told the microphones work now. Okay, so we'll try. If they stop working, we're just gonna quit for the night on the microphones. Okay. So Bob, Link, do you guys want to address what you think would be a perfect committee or a good committee?
All right, unmuted. Okay. Okay, hopefully everybody in Zoom land can hear me. Okay,
You tell what?
sure. Sure, yeah. So I think, thank you, Mr. Chair. How I would start is to talk about the Fuller Building Committee. And maybe I would ask if anyone was on that selection committee, how it went. So there were 9 members of the selection committee for the Fuller Middle School project. I'll just run through who they were. It was the chief procurement officer. Yeah. Yeah, that should be off. All right, I'm gonna start again. So there were 9 members. It was the chief procurement officer, the city procurement administrator, also from the city procurement office. Then it was the school director of buildings and grounds, the city's director of facilities, the city building commissioner, and then it was a member of the school committee, a member of the finance committee, and then another member or a member of the school building committee and a member of the school building committee. So it was made up of all different titles. I mean, if people that were on it can kind of describe how the process went, did it seem like there were too many? Were there?
It wasn't a subset of building committee, just almost a separate committee.
But all of those people I mentioned were on the school building committee. Yes, yes. The ones that I said school building committee, that's, yeah. So I don't know if you're open to.
Yeah,
I was on the school building committee at the time. I was not a member of the OPM selection committee.
David was.
Yeah.
So what was your impression about the size?
So the size was fine. I think, we had several interviews. We received an awful lot of information to read in order to evaluate the various people who responded. And then we rated them in a meeting. And so there's probably, I would guess, I don't know, Link, were you involved in that? There was probably a total of 3 or 4 meetings, and then there was a couple days of interviews. As far as the the work. I mean, it's just a matter of, you know, you had to do what you had to do in order to rate people. And I think we came to a pretty good consensus. I think the committee did their work and we all kind of arrived at the same answer, which was good. So yeah, that, and the number, you know, people will miss meetings. So there was enough people on the committee that we always had enough to actually do our work.
So given the fact that this year, I think it was pointed out, at least suddenly, maybe, or it's gonna be like June 18th, the beginning of July, so people are gonna have to keep that in mind too. Go ahead.
How many applicants did you get from?
Was that there were probably 6 or 7, maybe. I want to say we interviewed 4. And you know, the interviews were fairly extensive. Each person who was going after the work brought a crew of people with them. There was, you know, 5 people from the firm and, you know, multimedia and all that stuff. It was pretty elaborate presentations. Leaving us all a notebook, which I just recently gotten rid of. I think the last couple of those, you know, it was my basement.
So the Owners Project Manager Committee, even though the Owners Project Manager will be with us the entire project, the committee, that's the extent of the duties of the committee once July comes.
Right.
So whoever be interested, in addition to their background, should look at their calendar, I guess, right? Because that's obviously a tight time frame.
Yep.
And a difficult, potentially difficult time period.
Yeah, like what, do you recall what the time commitment was approximately?
Well, there was definitely 2 days of interviews and it was morning, afternoon. And there was some time away from the committee to read stuff because there was a lot of stuff to read. We had, the responses came in, we read all the responses, we figured out who we were going to interview, and then we did the interviews. So I would say, you do these kinds of things, you know, to give them their due, you probably want to spend a reasonable amount of time to evaluate people. I want to say, now that I think of it, there was probably 10 firms that responded because I had a stack of stuff I read.
But only 4 were interviews. So
Yeah, we tried to limit the interviews so we didn't burn too many people's days up.
How long were the interviews themselves? A couple of hours?
Yeah, I think we gave ourselves like we broke it up into, we wanted to talk to them about what we thought we wanted, you know, our goals and objectives were, we wanted them to give us their interpretation of how they saw the project going, and then give them a time to each answer questions. And they brought very elaborate presentations. Like some of the OPM people brought, you know, site plans with staging and all sorts of stuff because we were trying to build around the existing building.
I was involved in it in a professional capacity in my former job, and it is a lot of work for, you know, just to go through applicants.
And I would expect that the number be closer to 10 instead of.
Remote participant trying to speak, however, we
6.
can't hear him in the room, so I can turn up the volume on the phone. That's the workaround. You want to call him Mateo? All right, Mateo, you're
Oh,
recognized.
yeah. Yep. So, and I would expect that number to be closer to 10 than 6, right? Like the market is getting tighter. And so more people are looking for these jobs that are a little bit more secure. Medford is going through an OPM selection and they got, I believe 10 or 11 as of last week.
So that's helpful. If anybody didn't hear me, said you would expect that 10 or 11 may apply because the market is not quite what it was. So more people are looking for the work. So that's helpful. Well, this is what I would suggest. Somebody else, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
So this might be getting a little bit ahead in the process, but I just had a thought about this. Are there any regrets in hindsight about who you ultimately chose to build Fuller? Okay.
Sure. The request was to repeat who was on the committee by position. Yeah, please. Okay, so it was the chief procurement officer of the city. So as Jim mentioned, an MCPPO certified person has to be on the committee, and that was the CPO at the time. The procurement administrator, so that was also in the procurement office of the city. Then it was the school director of buildings and grounds. It was the city's director of town facilities. It was the city building commissioner. it was a member of the school committee, then a member of the finance committee, and then 2 members of the school building committee that didn't have any capacity as a city or school employee or any other committee. So there were 9 total. So I guess my question would be, was 9 too many? Was it not enough?
No, not everybody came to all meetings. So, of the 9 people, we would generally have 6 maybe. And so I think that as far as, if the committee was too small, it might be difficult to conduct the business of the committee. But by having that quantity, we were always able to make progress. And I think that's kind of important, that we don't get, people that schedule could, schools, graduations, all sorts of things. We don't want to run into too much of that.
But the problem is, you miss too many meetings, you wouldn't be able to very efficiently vote on the people, right? I mean, you wouldn't want
I
somebody
don't think
not,
you'd want 15.
no, what I'm saying, no, that's not what I'm saying, but, so the other issue comes down to a little bit of the open meeting law. I guess this committee is a little bit smaller, I'm told, than that committee was. So therefore, we're limited to what our size of our subcommittees a little bit. I certainly wouldn't want to take away the opportunity from anybody who's dying to be on this committee to be on it. But at the same point, I think, I personally, I don't know, I think 7 just to kind of fit in the open meeting law and reasonable number. Does anybody have a huge objection? Or if we were aimed at 7, then we could always make an adjustment if we had to, once we looked at who was going to be those people. Sure. Yes.
So I don't have a strong objection to reducing the number to 7. My question would be, I lost count of how many city employees.
Well,
If we keep all them, we're essentially gonna not have any representation
No,
from
I
this
agree with
committee.
that. So I think there should be representation from the building committee,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what I think might make sense, and we could even do a when's our next meeting? I know, it's like the beginning of June, sorry, I put my computer. Yes. Always, so this might be what I might suggest. If you guys could do a little internal survey recommendation as to who is not capable, available to do it and desirable to do it, and you're comfortable with, and let me know about that. And then at our next meeting, even if it's only item and we can do it virtually, so we don't have to bring everybody down here, that's the only thing. We can then maybe ahead of time, at least put a draft out that says we're gonna have 3 spots for building committee members, who's interested, and we can work from there. Because I think I think it's gonna be a little difficult to sit here tonight and just pluck people and decide who should, and I don't want to miss somebody either. So, I mean, to me, for the committee you listed off, to me, just hearing it sounds a little overdone on, as not only as Scott said, but seems a little overdone on city employees, but maybe not. But I mean, I think if those people with obviously professional abilities and needs, I mean, so the chief procurement officer is required, right? So is that the CFO essentially? Okay. She's here. Okay, go ahead. She can be heard.
Yes, hi. So George, I agree with you as far as the amount of city employees probably was an overkill because it was the first time we were doing this. So I would say as far as city employees, my recommendation would be myself as the CPO, Mike Tessino perhaps as with his role as a prior building commissioner, and then Jim Dwayne from the school department, and then another person from the school department, and then you parse out from there, a few others from your school building committee.
So I think that something like that would probably make sense. So if you guys could check and see, so I mean, CFO suggestion is 2 people from the city staff, 2 people from the school professional staff, and then 3 people from here, which seems to make sense to me. So could you, between now and the next meeting, can we do this? Can we finalize this in the next meeting without problem? Okay, so we just even if we have nothing else, we can have a fast virtual meeting in May just to finalize this. And I think that makes the most sense. Mike Tessino, you can briefly address this issue if you'd like.
Yes, so serving on on the full committee, my only negative recollection was that we were rushed. We were very rushed. So the sooner you put this committee together, I think would be better because we did go down to the wire on it. I think the timeline that Jim has on his PowerPoint is good, but I think we need to get working on it. So sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Well, yes, we can do it sooner rather than later, but we're not gonna have the applications to a certain date anyway, so it's June 18th. So I mean, the committee can certainly organize. If we do it in May, they have a month to organize, but there's not much they can do prior to getting applications, so. There's not a whole lot they have to do before that point, right? Because
Right.
there's nothing-
Select the committee, finalize the OPM RFS,
Right.
and then communicate with the MSBA.
So if we select this committee in the early May, that should be plenty of time, right? Even this way. Do you see any problems with that timeline?
I think that timeline works.
Okay, good. So I don't want to make it tight for anybody, but at the same point,
It's the after the June 18th.
it's gonna be rushed.
Get
Yeah, no,
addressed.
there's no question. Whoever decides they want to volunteer for it's gonna have to recognize that it's gonna be rushed. Busy. I don't mean rushed in a bad way. It's gonna be compacted.
And one thing that could probably save you a couple of days is I was looking at the MSBA asked for 10 business days. They might get back to you sooner, but if they do take the full 10 business days, then what was on your slides is going to be extended a little bit because of Memorial Day. So it might get into not till the first day of June, business day of June, that the central register could be posted. So if we meet on the 12th, maybe you'll have all you need by then. That could be submitted on the 13th, save a couple of days that way.
All right, so why don't we do this? Why don't you talk to the city people, see who the two they want. You guys tell us the two you want. Let me know. I'll put an email out to the committee. We can decide if you'd like to apply. And if we have more than 3 people, we'll figure out how we're going to decide that. If we don't have 3 people, we're going to have to figure something out there too. And I mean, that's a possibility given the schedule and stuff like that. So we'll get that all worked out between now and the next meeting. So when we come in, we'll have a virtual meeting unless there's another major issue in May. We'll just meet virtually to finalize this, and then that committee can be on its way. Okay? All right. Very good. Let's see. We have a review of our minutes from October 21st. Does anybody have a motion?
Sure. Motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? I'm not gonna.
You want to call on the Zoom people on this?
I don't think it's really. Does anybody in Zoom object? I'm just taking the vote because it's kind of hard to actually, okay, thanks. So we can consider that. Okay, so we'll meet on May 12th virtually unless there's another major issue that we have to address for the purpose of finalizing the committee. Okay? I appreciate everybody coming down here tonight.
Sure.
Yes.
Sorry, can I just clarify? So if we're meeting on the 12th, I thought I heard Mr. Duane say that one of the responsibilities of that committee would be to review the RFS, which I thought I saw on his slide is due May 15th. Am I following that correctly? And if so, is that enough time to finalize that RFS?
I think there's an opportunity for us to, never mind. My thought is irrelevant because I was thinking we were going to form it tonight and then we could share that RFS, get the feedback between now and, but the RFS is currently in the packet. So we are, would you say 95% completed? So I would recommend anyone who has any thought about becoming a member of this subcommittee would review that between now and then. So then when I think even before, if you submit feedback to myself or to Jim, that's okay. And then we can make tweaks if we want. But I guess the idea would be to finalize that night too.
I don't want to stir up our already established window schedule, but I guess since it's a virtual meeting, we could meet May 5th. Would that help? It's the week before.
If there are any major.
Yes.
So let's just do that. We'll say May 5th. I don't want to get way off the planned schedule, but we'll have a virtual meeting on May 5th. to finalize this, okay? That should work, right? No one sees a problem. And if there's a major problem that you come up with between now and then, let me know, okay? But I think that should work. All right, thanks for making that point.
Yeah, I mean, I have full confidence in the procurement
Let's do it.
abilities of the school and the city, so I just want to make sure we don't
All
put
right.
ourselves in a jam.
So that we don't have to keep running around the phone and everything else, I will, I know, it's quite different. I will take a motion to adjourn.
So
Moved in second, all those in favor? Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone online. Thank you.
Thank you.